Okay. A couple of new things since last time. I'm drawing it out now with watercolor pencil, so it blends in. Although, depending on what the dolly renders, will kind of require me to do something with line art. I still have my fine point pens. Right now, I'm working on trying to render a decent penguin in a Joker costume. And I just listed something here on my main site, so go to IPS.monster. I'm doing commissions. I stopped doing commissions, even though I did it for years. I stopped because, well, two reasons. One, I was bored with a lot of the ideas that I was told. Paint this barn on my family's property. Cool, okay. Paint these clouds. But like, I was kind of bored with it, one, and then two, it's just time intensive, resource intensive. And I decided to start up again because watercolor doesn't have that problem. Watercolor doesn't take that much time. And if I'm using AI to enhance ideas or generate ideas, I don't get bored. So that's another thing as well. What's up, Sharon Peters? Here is your wrench. I'm waiting on the slow internet to deliver the subject for today. Someone was suggesting I do like Penguin, Deadpool, or Wolverine. So I'm working on that. Yeah, I had to pull the thing. Last night, I don't think this is a coincidence. Last night, somebody asked Donald Trump Jr. who Q is, and he laughed and he evaded it, but confirmed in an indirect way that there is a Q. And like half an hour later, my video where I doxed Q was pulled for violating YouTube's terms of service. So my channel has a warning. I'm on probation for 90 days. So just to be safe, I pulled that video, but I am going to re-upload it for... Actually, it's already on BitChute, by the way. BitChute.com/Infinite Plane Society in its entirety. But I'm going to send it up through the normal channels, Spotify, all the podcasting platforms, because we want it to go everywhere, basically. So it's going to get out there as soon as I get back to the office. Yeah, as soon as I get back to the office, I'm going to upload it. But you could certainly finish it at BitChute. I was just worried about somebody was going through my channel, combing through for stuff to flag, so I'm deleting stuff. The art is safe on this channel, but I always have redundancies and backups. But the other nice thing is I'm going to upload it to IPS.monster, which is a Substack site. And when you upload a video to Substack, it will produce a transcript. So we'll have the transcripts as well. And I do need to put it out there that AutoHoaxCon number 2 is going to be late October. And this one will have better coordination, more time to prepare, minor bugs. There weren't any really huge ones, but those will be eliminated. And I think more importantly, next one, I'm going to have a lot more of the graphic art in place, the segues, the breaks. And I'm opening it up, though. So anyone who wants to put something out there, we can certainly platform it. At the numbers, we can show tangibly that we are reaching the target demographic, which are those of us on this side of the screen. Okay, it's being really slow. I was trying to have it render me a Penguin Deadpool. I'm just gonna settle on something here. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, let's do a podcast. I'm pretty much free in the mornings now. What I decided is I'm gonna go ahead and use my mornings to live stream, whether I'm painting or not. So I'm certainly open daily for this. Okay, it looks like my internet's too slow to render a new image, so I'm going to go with something I've already made. Not that any of it's bad. So I think we're going to be stuck with... I'll just do another version of it, which I don't mind. I was trying to get some chess pieces done as well, because I designed the Penguin Cyborg, the Penguinati, as a set of chess pieces and have them 3D printed. And I was looking at some 3D printed art at this art booth the other day. Well, this person had made all kinds of things, mostly little figurines and keychains and stuff, but it's just pretty incredible and how versatile that 3D printing is. And the chess set, though, is something I've had an idea for some time. Okay, I want to see a giant kraken made of 1,000 individual penguins and just a few random other sea creatures. That's a good prompt. So I am doing private commissions, but my stipulation is it must be AI gen. It must be run through Dolly, must be prompted. Mid-Journey. If not Dolly or Mid-Journey, I like Ideogram or even Grok. Grok's okay. All the cyborg penguins from Bing. And so here's the one I'm doing. It's one of these kind of big head. Yeah, okay, yeah, if you want to listen to AutoHooksCon, you can find it on BitChute. I should have warned everybody, but I was kind of panicked because they're going after my main channel. We know what that's like. And then I get the news that T-Mobile, they believe in me, but they can't hire me. Do I look like a mass shooter? I mean, what's the deal? A penguin stuck in the YouTube block dungeon chased by all the sex bots. That's good. And for anyone who doesn't know, last night, and I haven't uploaded this episode, this live stream, but last night I threw someone in the dungeon for calling us CGs. I'm not even going to elaborate. But it wasn't because he was name calling or just because he used something crude, but it was because he had said something about someone we talk to frequently. And I'm just like, you know what? Our interests are purely intellectual. It's really about the information itself. We don't really get into the politics. And if you don't like someone because of their religion or who they hate, that's really outside of our purview. We're alien anthropologists. We're not in on this. So I threw him in the dungeon, but then he called me and he asked to be released from the dungeon. And I go in there, and there were literally like 700 sex bots. So I'm like, you're in a dungeon with sex bots right now. YouTube allowed, I think this was strategic, they allowed our video streams to be flooded with these bots with explicit messages, and then we would get flagged for what's in the chat. Like, I think they were using like basically sex bots as a Trojan horse operation to shut down channels and probably sending people to bad links. I looked in there and I realized that we have had, that's why I hand out so many wrenches, because I didn't ban them. These were all listeners. So listeners were at war with these bots, and we had put that many of them into a container. Speaking of YouTube, their lawyers are arguing that I can't prove unequivocally that they had malicious intent when facilitating Goldfinch in his crimes, which is a great statement because they acknowledge the crime was committed, but I can't prove it on their end. The only reason I can prove Goldfinch is I have a confessional. So they're asking to be dismissed with prejudice. And I'm like, you know what? If they do that, I'm going to request that the employee at YouTube be added as another defendant, as a John Doe. So I'm going to file that motion to add John Doe. So if Google is pulled from the case, I still have the person responsible, which makes sense that they would want to push it on this one person who may have been negligent. We don't know. But we won't know until discovery. And discovery happens after the trial begins. First meeting is on Halloween. Nothing's changed on that as far as I know. Waiting on news. But it stands on its own merit. All sides agree something criminal was committed. The evidence is included in all the exhibits. And so I'm really just trying to leverage this Superior Court of California thing to move this into prosecution. And Goldfinch has been hiding in New Zealand. But anyway, last night he was referenced by Donald Trump Jr. So I went on Twitter and I've been responding to people, feeding them this information. It's funny how many of these cultists don't want to know. They still want to believe it's JFK. They want to hold on to their fan fiction. Interesting, Cynthia. There was a sex bot in Discord. John Amos passed away 41 days ago. Media's just releasing it. Is that the guy who's 84? Yeah, as far as the case goes, he's been this way. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but it's been steady. So if Google detaches itself, but I have Goldfinch on the hook, and then I bring them back in via John Doe, it doesn't make a difference. We're going to get to the facts of the matter. And I'm still awaiting something, my FOIA request with the FBI, because if there is an open investigation into any of what I've reported on since 2017, back when it was simply just stalking, before it got into wire fraud, all these things were reported. I'm going to have a stack of papers to include. Kindling, in a way. I mean, that's what we're aiming for. And then one other side note, Goldfinch was hit with an $18,000 fine by the judge in the Hunter Biden lawsuit. Not by name, of course, yet. But they had anti-slap to shoot down the suit over the hacked laptop of it. It was frivolous. And Hunter's attorneys billed him $18K, and the judge said, make the other guy pay for it. Punitive, in a way. But they're sweating this whole thing because I was listening to Garrett Ziegler talking about how the founding fathers had sacrificed so much for America, and he may have to do the same. You know, really talking like he was facing some kind of major threat, mortal danger, like they're coming for him. And I think it's because he knows, because it's in all these papers, that the next step for Hunter's team is to dox the people who had the laptop, the chain of custody, and those who financed its publication and distribution. And that is the person I am suing. So as soon as he's revealed, he's going to be on the same, going to be represented by the same law firm that's representing Ziegler, which means I can immediately serve him my cyber squatting damage complaint. But that's all going to happen within the next 60 days. This is a repeat of one I've done before. My internet's too slow here to do another one, but I am opening up to private commissions with one caveat that I don't have to create from my own imagination. It's going to come from one of these image renderers, because, and I haven't sent out the insider offer printing yet. So yeah, if you want to send me the links, I will 100% fix it. I still have like editorial powers up until like probably midnight tonight, maybe tomorrow. So I'm also adding a page. I'm adding stuff on the back from the conference. I'd like to also have a QR code to link to it, and it's on BitChute. But I'm going to, since that was before the end of the month, I'm just going to add it in there, and there's plenty of room. Girl says, exposing NASA's fakery is more powerful than stopping the bus to argue about flat Earth. Well, who's even talking about flat Earth today? Is anybody? Well, actually, the Green Bay Packers. There's like 3 of them. But it's really just a trollish meme for most people until they see it. I think there's a question it raises. I think it's funny how triggered people get by it. JLB just did an interview, johnthebond.com, with somebody who's involved with the 24-hour sun observation in Antarctica. And he's right to call into question these people who are, like, how hard is it to say, I don't know? We need more information. I'm all for it. I volunteered. I said, if none of these guys want to go, send me. I'm not going to lose app sales if my theory's debunked. And from day one, I said it's premature for a model. Co-star says, laughing at NASA is one of my favorite things. Yeah, one of my favorite things this year is that vein on Butch's head up there in the ISS. I mean, that pulsing, throbbing vein between his eyebrows and his bloated face. It's like 1 minute he's got sunken cheeks, he's kind of pale with freckles. The next minute he's swollen like a tomato, and he looks like Kim Jong-il. It's like, how did he do that? Space? No. Ask yourself why the astronauts wear tight belts. There's nothing pulling on them. It's because they're hiding the straps. And one way to take this apart is to ask yourself, what could they be doing that they're not? What should we be seeing that's conspicuously absent? For example, could they take an iPhone, have the video, and play catch with it? No, they could not. What about, okay, just in the interest of art, because there used to be a time when the human body was considered to be God's handiwork, and it was to be admired, and it wasn't like shameful. And, you know, nude statues. Like there's a nude statue of Trump going around. Like, why can't we see a naked person in space? Just for the artistic merit of it. Just float around, 0G naked for us. They can't because the straps. They're already. If the thing was real, there would already be babies. Like, send him down in a little pod like young Superman from Krypton. So no, that's all fake. Show me somebody puking in space. Because they can fake little spheres. They can fake stuff that's consistent with the effects you see in consumer level 3D animation programs. But no, I want to see like the randomness of nature, like the stuff you couldn't just, that doesn't look like it's pre-programmed. The shadow of the ISS kills it also. There are so many points you can bring up with the ISS that just kill it. It has the people who believe in it really grasping at straws. So Tom Cruise was supposed to do the first movie in space, and he lost to the Russians. Then he was going to be the first civilian to do a spacewalk, and he just lost. Someone else did it. A furry beat him to space. Like, I don't know what the deal is. I'm wondering if we ruined it for him. It's too high profile a thing. I don't know. Like, maybe they don't want people looking that close. I might go watch Megaopolis, by the way. That thing is just so, it's 100% predictive programming for the next 9/11. And if you recall, when it was out in the film festivals, you know, in Vanity Fair, he's like, the plot always involved an old Russian satellite falling to the earth. And as it hits the film festivals, a Russian satellite breaks into 100 pieces and forces the astronauts on the ISS to duck and cover. So that's how you know this thing is integrated into predictive and concurrent programming. It's been woven into the real world. And it opened up with an ominous statement about the empire falling. And for like the last year, it seems like the word empire has been used consistently as code for EMP, and the destruction of the empire being the nuke. And then what follows next is the new empire. You got Godzilla X, a new empire, Frozen Empire, Ghostbusters. And you saw the Drudge Report yesterday where it said Trump goes darker because now he's talking about the purge, and he comes out with this green-blue face paint on, or they've painted him up that way. And he looked just like the dead Trump in the netherworld on the second Beetlejuice. And then what really hit me yesterday is just beyond ironic. I mean, this is intentional. Is that for years, people have been comparing Laura Loomer to the Purge, one of the bad guys from the Purge. So it's been this like ongoing joke. Well, the Purge's publicity guy for the 2016 one was hired by Jared Kushner to work for the Trumps. So they have had this Purge connection. Keep America Great comes from that. But weirdly, last month, the media finally noticed Laura Loomer in Trump's shadow and called her out as the source of all of his crazy rantings. That she's the one who's radicalized Trump. So she's this wild person that he's got to distance himself from. And then he goes out in Erie, Pennsylvania, and he talks about allowing 1 hour of lawlessness, which is basically, it's been compared to the Purge. So now I'm thinking that Laura Loomer's Purge connections are actually part of her predictive programming role. And if you may remember, she was the one who stormed the stage in 2016 when they were filming or doing the play, Julius Caesar, where they were killing Trump. She's the one who called out Alex Soros's Atlantic when it had the bullet hole in the 47 and a seeming reference to Trump. And then I believe she also noted the Time magazine, the Trump in trouble on the golf course. So she's been very closely connected to the PSYOP stuff surrounding Trump for years now. Great video on this is Vegas PSYOP. Okay, I'll take a look. Yeah, we'll talk about that today. I actually have a list. Vegas Hoaxiversary. Maybe I'll watch Megaopolis. Musk has now admitted twice so far. Twice he's admitted that videos from space look like CGI. What's going on with that? And I am going to upload AutoHoaxCon 1 on all the usual channels. I had to pull it because my channel's under scrutiny. Because somebody's getting nervous. And he should be. If anybody still thinks, or if anybody's still promoting the idea that people died at Vegas, and by the way, Jason Aldean, we'll have to get back to him. Anybody there is stuck. Like, I'm sorry, but they're stuck on the other side of the screen. I can name a few high-profile conspiracy theorists who are now saying, oh, it was actually some kind of a war between competing royal families, and it was just ridiculous stuff. But Jason Aldean, who was 33 at the time, resurfaced recently on a Tucker Carlson interview where he talked about try that in a small town. And this ties in with Eric Blackwater in that interview I alluded to yesterday where he said Civil War is going to be rural versus urban. But try that in a small town was a deliberate provocation that he played dumb about, where he claimed he didn't know that the courthouse was associated with the lynching and that it had nothing to do with BLM, even though the video for try that in a small town originally contained clips from the 2020 riots. These people are disingenuous. They're not dumb. It's called gaslighting. And they do it because it works. Yeah, the hangover thing too. The hangover on the bingo card. There's some overlapping stuff. There's some predicted hangover movie. Terrible movie, I think. And for anyone who still holds on to the idea that Vegas was real, you really got to confront them with the Thousand Oaks and just point out the obvious. These are the unluckiest people on earth. 50 of them are like, screw this place, and they go to California, and dancing at another country bar, they're shot at again, all 50 of them. And then this eerie coincidence, according to the media, the eerie coincidence here is down the street where they were shot at the second time, there was a drill being performed by 50 crisis actors, mass casualty role players. And the script for that event was based on Vegas. There were some great lines in that one. Like there was this one guy there who said that he used his belt as a tourniquet. It had no blood on it. He claimed he threw bar stools to knock windows out. And it was strange when Wolf Blitzer's like, turn away from the screen. It's very violent. And CNN pans over the bar. And all you hear are It sounds like a popcorn going off in the back, like a popcorn machine. I guess that's the gun, but you don't see anything. Nobody saw anything. There were so many clues and giveaways connecting this to previous events as well. Repeated actors, and even one of the Thousand Oaks witnesses had a shirt that referenced a dance studio in Florida connected to one of the Pulse victims. And I believe there's a connection between one of the Pulse victims and Stephen Paddock. Stephen Paddock was recently in the news because his brother, like the brother of the Joker shooter who looks just like Biden in the face, was arrested on CP stuff. I think it's all theater. Yeah, my favorite video is the Uber lady. It's like, take us to somewhere expensive. You know, you pick up someone who got through a mass shooting. They claim that they've been shot in the leg and they're injured. And you're like, do I take you to the hospital? And they said, no, take us to a hotel, a nice one. It's because these were actors flown in from California, LARPing as country music fans because they were trying to sell the fear of guns to the people who love guns, the country music community. Like, look what your Second Amendment did. Now it's coming after you. These are plot twists. The latest plot twist is now the shooters are satanic or trans and radicalized on Reddit instead of incel right-wingers radicalized on Telegram or Terragram, which was anybody surprised when it came out that Telegram is a big honeypot and they're giving all your docs to the FBI? We already knew this about Discord. The reason I don't take Discord as seriously as I used to is there are many people who have been contracted by the FBI to monitor our servers. We've identified a number who are highly suspicious. MSO Win says, good day, check out the work. Thomas Erickson, okay. To see the manipulation, always playing with the archetypes, emotion, and distress. Okay, yeah, I have to check it out because I think that one of the reasons they do it is this. It has to do with the symbolism a bit here. You know, why would they communicate with archetypes, symbolism, and themes and stuff that tap into, I think, primal fears? Like storm gods, things that have always captivated people. I think it's because you can only brainwash us so much if you appeal to us rationally. And I think they have to communicate to us on multiple levels. And I think that they're, like, just consider the combination in Netflix. Co-founder, first CEO, relative of Edward Bernays and Sigmund Freud. You know, masters of publicity stunts, manipulating the mass mind, but also understanding the mind. Like, I think the reason why we have Noah and climate change and the angry flood myth to punish the wicked, I think these are themes that resonate with everybody. These are universally, I think, potent themes. Fear of the sky, perhaps some kind of agoraphobia or weather, storm god stuff is big. And I would even argue that the pandemic and the lockdown and the purification thing, I think it's really a process of indoctrinating people into a religious paradigm more than anything. And it creates a schism between the saved and the unsaved. And the saved are those who listen to the priesthood and take the injectable Eucharist. And I think they want the dialectic of the unsaved versus the saved. They don't want to save everybody. They need half versus half. That's why I say take the non-position. Don't be an anti. Yeah, I saw that. Now, when it comes to these actors, like Routh, it's no different than a Kyle Rittenhouse. This is all nuance, all fake. So the pyramid on Mars is fake. Because if Mars is fake, in the way they represent it, and they're not really on Mars, then a pyramid on Mars assumes that the original fake is real, which is, so now you're putting fake on top of fake. That is fake fake. So now we have a fake shooter, and now we're talking about the nuances of his family and their internal drama and why he became a Democrat. And it's like, no, this is a pyramid on Mars. Let's not lose sight of that. Even though these are interesting and notable key talking points. For example, the fake Trump event, which I need to ask Woo's News about, the Secret Service agents were pointed out for being, quote, DEI, and they were women, and they were too weak for the job. And that's an obvious planted narrative because it engages people in the story. So now all these people who are predisposed to see that have their biases confirmed, and now the event is real to them because they've moved into the realm of analyzing the fake fake. I've compared this to when somebody buys a used car, or any car, when they get you discussing the color of the paint, they've already presumed the sale and you're already operating under that. Like I'm going into the details about this, so I've kind of assumed the sale. And what they're doing is they're trying to get you to assume the reality, of the basic reality of something. Like assuming the sale, if you catch it, is kind of annoying. It's like, well, I haven't decided yet. That's when you get called out as a pushy salesperson. You have to make them think it's their own decision or their own idea. And so you have to engage them in other ways. And people get engaged emotionally in these stories with all the side drama. Now it becomes real. Plain Decoded says, maybe crisis acting has DEI. Yeah, crisis acting seems like it's actually scraping from the bottom of the barrel. They don't have a lot of people in their talent, like these astronauts. Like that's why I say NASAtology. Maybe it's just as scammy as Scientology as far as space religions go, but Scientology has them beat with actors. Like they don't have any real skilled actors. These are just government workers and people with security clearances. I mean, of course, some of them are real pilots. There's a point where real and fake merge, though, and where they become absolute liars. They lie to children for money. Look, astronauts, in addition to being cosplayers, lie to children for money. It's not like they're fooled. It's not like they don't know that they're hanging out on a movie set like from Inception with some kind of harness rig on their back and a seesaw, and you're hanging upside down with a forehead vein popping out. Try not to choke on Medusa's hairspray. And that Glurf was like, okay, well, where's her forehead vein if they're both upside down? And it's like, well, you don't know that they're in the same shot, one. And two, they probably selected her because she's all but desiccated. There's not enough blood in there to swell a vein on her forehead. But the other guy was eating pretty well. And I find that very questionable as well. You know, in space, it's like you're camping. How are they maintaining the diet where they fill out their uniforms like that? They look very well fed. That's what gave him away. What gave that guy away was when he turned upside down, his cheeks almost went over his eyes. He should have done more cardio. See, now they're going to listen to us and they're going to adjust and improve. Elephant Tusk says, any ability to do your own background check on yourself? You can use conventional sites. You know, Spokeo is a good one. I use that. Stalker, by the way. But I do monitor who have stalked me in the past. And in a very passive way. Like, if they move, I know. And what's interesting is sometimes they don't have a known address, but then they move, and then they register somewhere, and then you catch them. But I'm getting all of the reports that I filed to FBI from 2017 to 2023. And late 23 was his last hacking. And this is what's going to sink him, is that he's a hacker. You know, he's part of that anonymous hacker collective. He's considered himself a white hat. But I'm suing him specifically for acts of hacking that have been reported extensively, repeatedly. And I knew that nobody, the FBI is just a filing cabinet. I'm convinced of it. They're just people who put stuff in filing cabinets. But I knew at some point I would be able to access it. So I just kind of made these things, these reports, every single time there was an incursion. And there were 5 simultaneous incursions at the end of 2022, beginning of 2023. One of them involves Spotify, and I'm going to have to sue them next. But I am curious if Goldfish had some kind of influence on my own background. He said he has that kind of connection, you know, because he did contact a lot of my previous employers, none of whom would rehire me. And I applied for a place at a call center just now, and I was told that they believe in me, but they don't have a position for me. MSO Win says, I wonder why in the U.S. they need so many crisis actors compared to the EU. Sometimes I think the program in the U.S. has more glitches compared to EU. Interesting question. I kind of think that we're hit more heavily with stuff. We're saturated more deeply because freedom of speech. Like, I look at the special effects of the Chinese space station. Looks like they ordered their ISS from Wish. And I think it's because if the public can't be openly critical of government propaganda and the government at large, then you're not going to have pockets of critics. And critics develop as critics by looking at each other's criticisms, by discussing these things as a group of observers. And that's kind of what we're doing. So you don't have a refined group of people as far as like refined observers who've been following it, who know the nuance. You really wouldn't have that. It's been disincentivized. So we're just more demanding here in America. We need more mass shootings if you want to keep us engaged. More propaganda. We need everything. Like, our propaganda here is on crack. But now with TikTok and user-generated content, now there's such a flood of misinformation and people with no standards of evidence that they can almost get a pass on anything. And if people are predisposed to believe what they hear, it almost doesn't matter. As though evidence ever mattered before with most people, but you include the TikTokification of the mass mind, and it's like, okay, now it's just NPC world. You know, someone looked at I think it was someone on Twitter I follow. He posted a cover of the new Joker movie, one of their posters, and it says 10/4/24, the world's a stage. And it has Harley Quinn and Joker kissing, and it's a couple clowns. But all the world's a stage, and he said, clown world complete. I'm looking forward to it. I don't think they're going to blow the world up on 10/4. I think they're going to wait till enough of us have watched the movie. They'll give us till 10/5. US Break says, US fake space the best. Yeah, I'm looking forward to how they handle Tom Cruise in space, because they're doing it in this thing called Axion. Axion is a private space movie company that they're attaching as an inflatable module to the side of the ISS, which makes me wonder, are they going to adjust for all the people who fake the transits? Now you have to have like the Tom Cruise wing included on the little graphic that you insert into your video. I'll have to ask Jaron. Hey, did the FBI, did NASA update your ISS faking file with the latest appendage where Tom Cruise is going to be faking space? But what I think is going to be a conundrum here is Tom Cruise's movie is going to look better than the ISS, and the ISS is real. Real should look better than fake. I mean, artistically and otherwise, yeah, obviously fake. You can embellish the real, but the realness of real is self-evident, except in the ISS it's not. I'm like wondering here, Like, I'm mostly curious what the hell they're going to do with his hair. Hairspray it up, make it stick up all dumb, like they have been for decades, or are they going to do something with CGI? Is his hair going to be all CGI and billowy? Or is he going to slick it back like they did in the movie ISS, because they knew that I was watching. They knew we were watching them, specifically for the hair. And as bad as it all is, you have to remember, too, that like 99% of the people take it to be true unquestioningly. That's faith in media. They have faith in what is presented on the screen. And these are people who'd be philosophically opposed to the idea of obligatory faith in a religion. Like, they're not theocrats. They're like, oh, no, I wouldn't want to live in a theocracy where I have to believe everything in this old book. Well, you live in a theocracy. But instead of God, in the traditional sense, you have God constructs. But you still have the same church. You still have the same priesthood. They just update the nomenclature. So this is a brush that fills with water. Get a lot more surface coverage in a shorter amount of time. And it reminds me of airbrushing. I did airbrushing for a couple of years before I got tired of the noise from the air compressor. And then the expense of it, it's like $6 an hour just counting the expenditure on paint. It was just really cost prohibitive, but this is kind of reminding me of it. You can add paint in it, or you can just use water, but the idea is you just squeeze this instead of having to go back and forth constantly. Plain Dakota says, don't you think the plan for people tank, wouldn't they have a contingency for us? You know, I really do think that we blindside them. I don't think they have a contingency here. They certainly did for the whole flat earth thing. There's a controlled op. For any NASA criticism in general, yeah, they had plans for that. Obviously. Anti-V is 100% the controlled opposition that was planned in advance. Look, if you go to Event 201, they talked about the mask refuseniks and the anti-vax contingent. They talked about that in the scripted tabletop exercise. It was a controlled rebellion, which is why I didn't fall for it. Yeah, I could add some cute little nuke explosions in the background. That's a good idea. You know, when you try to do that, though, a lot of these things will censor it. Like on 9/11, I'm like, give me a giant pair of Levi jeans upside down, burning against the Manhattan skyline, like pants on fire. And it wouldn't do it. You just have to kind of mess with it. But if they catch you gaming, if they catch you manipulating it to draw things that it wouldn't want to draw in good conscience, they can you. And they're on the lookout. You can say red paint. You know, I need somebody with their mouth open like they're surprised and red paint splattered everywhere. And it knows you mean blood. I don't think Grok has the guardrails. But I do not think there is a contingency. The best they can do is damage control, and we see that every day. Musk is casually throwing it out there. Yeah, okay. It looks like CGI, but it's real. Like, who do you think that's a reference to? Joe Rogan's like, okay, yeah, fine. The arguments against the moon landing don't weigh as much as the arguments that favor skepticism. But it doesn't mean space is fake or the earth is flat. But you see what they're doing here is it's like a strategic retreat on certain issues where they take a few steps back, they concede some points, but they still maintain control and they keep it within bounds. They don't let it out of their world stage construct. Their problem with me and with this and with the IPS is going to get big, and it's going to become problematic when Q is doxxed. And that's right around the corner. I have it on my calendar. Because, you know, like that Illuminati playing card says something about the FE movement. Like they know something. Like we do know something here. And if we don't, and we're wrong about everything, let us know. But they'll have to provide evidence and facts. And that would be nice. Put some reference to neo-feudalism. Yeah, I should do maybe some Martian gulags. Potato farmers on Mars. Again, the whole auto hoax con thing, I'm opening it up so anyone just got here. At the end of October, we're going to do the same thing. Maybe keep it under hours. It depends. If we start earlier in the day, it really wouldn't bother me to do longer even. But we will have scheduled breaks and pre-recorded segments. So I'm opening it up to anyone who has anything subject they are interested in presenting to this specific audience. And the only stipulation is that it comes from the perspective of the off-world stage skeptic, you know, the idea that, yeah, we're obviously not trying to promote mainstream fake conspiracies. The it's realers, the death clingers. The people died at this event. People die at some event. It's like, well, go find me some death certificates. And you know what's worse? This whole bearing of false witness and this, which is commonplace. What's worse now is I'm seeing people offering, like influencers on X, saying, yeah, my buddy's best friend's uncle's buddy was over there at that event, right there in Springfield, when the Haitians ate the cat. I'm like, really? And the same, yeah, so my buddy's best friend's buddy has another buddy whose buddy's buddy was there in Asheville when it got flooded, and it's worse than the media says. I'm like, can you give me some primary sources here? My buddy's not a reference. It doesn't count. And they're shameless about it because they're getting clicks. One guy took a screen cap from somebody else's secondhand account. So this guy's like, yeah, my uncle's buddy saw black helicopters and naked starving kids running around, people begging for water, and the government doesn't want you to see it. And then someone else was like, you grabbed this from a TikTok video. What's your connection to the event? And he has this list. He's like, well, first it's this person, this person, this person, and then this person connects to me. And I asked him, I said, are you just clickbaiting here off of a tragedy to make some money? It's as bad as those people at the side of the road that have buckets out saying, you know, we need money for this funeral. And they're usually faking it. Phil LeBlanc, I totally know that guy. Yeah, ask them who their buddies are. I'd had someone call in, they're like, my best friend's family friend died in 9/11, and we don't appreciate you saying this stuff. I'm like, what was their name? I'm like, well, get back to me. Well, I don't want to say. Oh, okay, well then give me some initials. They'd give me some initials, and out of 3,000 people, they couldn't even get that right. The people who say they knew somebody are worse than those who say that they believe that some people died because the bad guys had to get rid of some people who knew too much. Like, they have to get into the realm of, you know, creative fan fiction or more or less fiction in order to make these stories fit. And your job isn't to lie to yourself to make sense of the lies that they're telling you, because their lies are so terrible. People do that, though. People will, so they will essentially allow their own perceptions to be secondary to the perceptions of whoever controls. That's the fundamental idea behind gaslighting. It's not just lying, but it's getting somebody to relinquish the primacy and importance and significance of their own perceptions. Like, I may have seen this, But the person who has control over me says this, so I'm going with that. I'm going with the TV. I'm going to go with what NASA says, even though I've been clowned on Twitter for 5 days for pretending not to see this pulsing vein on this guy's forehead. Like, Veingate was a big reveal. One of the best since Smudgegate. Smudgegate was when we found an erroneous shadow, a shadow that should not be, right underneath the ISS on the ESA footage. Now, it was accurate. It was in the appropriate place if such a thing were possible. So let's say, for example, you have a computer model you're working with. So I got a computer model. I have a ball here, an oblate spheroid, 25K circumference. I have a football field, kind of sparse object. I mean, the ISS is just a bunch of tubes. Will it have a shadow if it's 300 miles above? And technically, yes, but it wouldn't be visible. So they had it all aligned perfectly according to the model. It was very consistent. Internally consistent movement and everything else. The problem is, it's not for the shadow to be as dark as it is, and I say is, on the ISS footage. That shadow would not be visible from space, but it is. And when I called this out, Red's Rhetoric, who blocked me on Twitter for some reason, said it's a smudge on the... And that's when it really hit me, that you're not looking at a camera lens in all these instances. It's an internal camera view within a simulated environment. CGI. It looks like CGI, but it's not. Trust me, bro. That's Elon Musk's new thing. Yeah, it looks fake in CGI, but it's not. And people are like, well, if he says it's not. If I could hack Elon Musk's Twitter account, I would say space is fake AF. No big deal. And then I would change his password and just lock him out of it. It would only take a few hours because every one of his believers would just automatically switch. Because they've got a hive mind, these idol worshippers. Matt Walsh is like, well, I don't believe the moon landing's fake, but if Elon Musk says, then I'm on board. That's just as bad as saying, if Dr. Fauci says, or Bill Gates says, ooh, interesting. Okay, I'm taking note here of your prompts. Yeah, Mousegate was one of the best things ever. And when I called out Mousegate, Starlink's head of security started stalking me on Twitter. And the only person he was following beside me, Elon Musk. So I sent him a DM and I said, tell Elon the IPS knows, #Mousegate. Because we do. We know exactly what it is. Now, I'm not closed-minded. I'm always open to new facts, new observations, new potential evidence. For example, I know a pilot, and they have a video of something, and they said they've seen it multiple times. That when they're going on a certain route, and they look toward the Big Dipper, they see these two lights, these two apparent stars that look like stars, near the tail, but they tend to blink out and almost move up or down. Like their positions move rapidly as he's recording it. So obviously they can't be stars. They can't be satellites. So what are they? So this is kind of a mystery. And I was sent one of these videos and I saw the things. And this was after he told me they're up there. So these have been observed multiple times. So I look on Reddit, have reported such things. And in my opinion, these are consistent with stratospheric balloons. Or stratospheric balloons. I think that's most likely it. But I think that what's happening is some pilots at certain times of the night or early morning may be observing our fake space infrastructure, low Earth orbit. What if low Earth orbit is just a place in the stratosphere where we have a bunch of satelloons? And those things can stay up there for many months. You just got to look at Loon X to know their latest capabilities. Everything purported to be done by Starlink was already being done by Loon X. They only went out of business because they weren't making any money, which is ridiculous. What's up, Deprogrammed Truther? Thank you for joining. By the way, all these are available at IPS.monster. All you have to do is click the button where it says private commissions. Now, yeah, I think Loon X became Starlink. Absolutely. I don't believe that anybody has actually seen chains of lights. I have no evidence to support that. Nor would you see it. You wouldn't see the stratospheric balloons would not be viewed as similar to orbit. You wouldn't see these balloons glowing like that in a big chain. In a simulation of orbit. That wouldn't really be a thing. But when you look into Loon X, you can find that everything attributed to orbiting satellites can 100% be done. Not only by what's on the ground, but from the stratosphere, above the weather. These things lurk up there for 6 months. And I saw Loon X on 2 different occasions. It was in the summer, before they retired it. And I think they just switched. They just basically went from Loon X to SpaceX because they wanted to preserve and maintain the illusion of low Earth orbit, without which we can't have space wars. Space wars can't happen if we don't believe literally in the simulated environment of low Earth orbit. Yeah, of course Starlink is balloons. And besides that, Starlink is CGI. Elon Musk would probably admit Starlink looks like CGI, but it's not. It looks fake, but it's not. But one of the more interesting things they've done lately, and this is actually clever, is they've turned moon landing denialism from tinfoil hat paranoia to informed about PSYOPs and how clever our government was to win the Psy war against Russia by tricking the world. Now you can take pride in that. You know, it used to be, we went to the moon. If you don't believe that, you're a fool. Now they're going to say, we faked the moon landing for America. Like, salute the flag. We faked the moon landing. We tricked those guys. They changed the entire script with one movie, one stupid rom-com. And Channing Tatum literally said, F you flat earthers. What's so easy to find a picture of satellites in space? Here's what I'm going to say. Because I don't, if somebody says, I saw a UFO. Like if I said to you right now, I saw a UFO yesterday. Are you going to believe me? I would say you should not believe me. I got a phone in my pocket. Why didn't I take a picture of it? And 99.999999% of the time, somebody says, I saw the ISS. I'm like, where's your picture? Where's your picture? You know, we live in a time where cameras are everywhere. And if something anomalous were to pop up, somebody would take a picture. And nobody ever has a picture. It's like you're just like the UFO people with these types of claims. And so I can just reject them. And furthermore, I do not accept ISS transits unless there's more than one witness, so we can triangulate. Because it's easy to look at a light in the sky and say, well, it might be a UFO or an ISS. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this on the table as evidence. It might be. I call that maybe Bigfoot logic. Maybe it was Bigfoot, maybe it was a deer. Sorry, until you can prove Bigfoot to exist, you can't include that in your list of options. It's not in the realm of possibility. And so it's the same thing with lights in the sky. You can't say, well, it might have been a UFO, might have been Martians. Sorry, that's not on the table. Might have been Bigfoot and a flying saucer. Nope. Maybe logic. Now, what two witnesses does is if you have, let's say, two observers 60 miles apart, like someone here where I am and somebody in Santa Fe. And if I see a light in the sky, I could say, well, maybe it's the ISS because maybe it's in space. But if the observer in Santa Fe can't see it, then in all likelihood, it's because they're too far away to see it because it's not that high, because it's an airplane. But if it's in space, 200 miles up, then they would see it. So you have to be able to triangulate, which requires 2 witnesses. And they've done this before, but they did it with ISS transits, not with eyewitnesses of the thing. I mean, so it doesn't count. Oh yeah, I'm watching the Penguin. I'm trying to finish Napoleon, and I want to go see Megaopolis. These are all my must watches, and I probably should catch up on Godzilla X. I did a review of Godzilla -1, where Godzilla's kind of a, you could call that movie a sort of a counter to Barbie feminism. A reconstitution of the nuclear family, going along with the rebuilding after the nuke. Yeah, my stance on Plain Decoded is this. If we accept everybody's eyewitness account with something so integral to the fakery, like let's give them the benefit of the doubt. No, you shouldn't do that. And one person has not so far, been able to substantiate it with multiple observers or observation points. And the reason why you can't accept transits is this. You don't have eyewitnesses. We need eyewitnesses. So somebody will say they've seen the Starlink. I'm just going to say, where's your picture? Because if we're going to be logical here, we can't say, well, because we agree on a lot of things, I have to accept whatever you say. The instant we do that, we've lowered the bar. And there's a billion people who will happily testify about how they saw a flying saucer. People confabulate. People make mistakes. Their cognitive bias leads them. Like there are people, would you deny that anyone that heard Bigfoot? My answer is yes. My answer is yes, I would deny it if you don't have evidence. We have to maintain high standards. And if it's so easy to see, then go see it again. It's not like it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing and you're denying my viewing of it. No, just go outside and see it. Just use the app. Just get the app and go outside and look up. You'll see it. Because that's what they all say. That's what they all used to say. Like, well, you just never went out and look. You know, I've been using the ISS tracker, and I have not seen it. Just look up, bro. Why don't you believe in chemtrails? You never look up. Touch grass. It's like, no, I've never seen it. And I notice anomalies. I notice everything within my field of view. So would I deny it? I would deny it if there weren't any pictures, because here's why. Here's the, I don't know why this is the thing, but this is the standard response. I don't believe in the ISS, but I saw something. No, that's maybe Bigfoot logic. I don't believe in Bigfoot, but I heard something. Sorry, that is not admissible. It's not admissible. We have to reject that because it's too low of a standard of evidence. And it's not that it's not accurate. Maybe it is true, but you have to provide some kind of evidentiary basis to be included in the discussion, or we could have false evidence screwing everything up. And I've made enough noise about this in the last 4 years, and nobody has stepped up to produce a compelling video of the ISS. That says something. And then to say, well, I don't believe in the ISS, but I saw lights that match the app. See, what that does is it immediately debunks itself because no lights can match that. I mean, I had a friend I had to pick up from the airport, and she was like late. The airplanes weren't on time, had to shift things around. So the idea that you have these airplanes simulating it and reaching it perfectly down to the second, impossible. Too many factors. And so not only that, but there are no airplanes that can go 17,000 miles per hour. And that's how fast they would need to go to reach every transit point. So people tried for some time to advance the argument that I don't believe in the space station, but I saw lights and it matched the app. Well, no, it didn't. Unless it was in space. Because the only way that lights in the sky could perfectly comport with the app is if they are aligning with the model that they're reinforcing. No human craft can go that speed. There's no known mode of propulsion to move that speed. And then beyond that, let's say the Earth was not a ball. Nothing could even imitate that at those speeds. The angles, the turns, I mean, it's just absurd. Yeah, thanks, Symbia. I was doing acrylic forever, and acrylic is messy and it takes a long time to dry. And I wasn't getting anywhere with watercolor until I realized that it was all about the paper. I was using Bristol board, and so it would drift along the surface laterally, whereas this watercolor paper absorbs it straight in, like it wicks. And so the pigment sticks on there and the water goes inside and disappears. And it obviously dries faster and it's vibrant. I like it. And it's not ruining my clothes. I mean, there are so many pluses to using watercolor. So I'm selling private commissions based on AI generated art. And something else about watercolor I didn't know is that you can more or less erase. Like if I wanted to make some real hard lines here around the gun, I could use the water and the brush and wipe away those edges. And I may or may not enhance this one with ink. I'm trying to just go strictly with water. Deprogrammed Truther says, a couple of people on our server are tracking the ISS if I uploaded pictures. Yeah, here's the thing. I said, as far as evidence goes, I can't say pictures because all they can say is it's a light in the sky. How do you know the speeds? I should probably check into a mental asylum. I've seen the ISS and Starlink lights. Well, here's why. You have an app that you used to see it at that time. So if it arrived on time for you, then it's safe to say it arrived on time for the person before you. And the person in the time zone and the track and the transit point going every time zone before you because it orbits the Earth every 93 minutes. 93 minutes, 25,000 miles, 17,000 miles per hour. If it's not going 17,000 miles per hour, it would not meet those transit points in a 93-minute circuit. So if you saw it at that time, then what you saw was A, going 17,000 miles per hour, or B, it wasn't there. It could not be simulated with a low-flying craft. So not only do I want pictures don't work because they're always ambiguous. My stipulation is if you're going to say you have a picture of the space station, I need a photograph and a timestamp, and you sign off on it. This is my good faith claim that this is the space station. Because once I have that statement that you as an observer are signing off on this piece of evidence, then I can cross-reference it with flights and flight trackers. And everything is tracked, literally. So if we then find out that, hey, you passed off a plane as the space station, we can rule you out as a valid observer in this. You're biased in some way, or the person would be biased. So in order to eliminate that, I think what we have to insist upon is two observers. Two observers, a sufficient distance apart that would give away if the thing is or isn't 300 miles up. Because if it's 300 miles up, my friend in Santa Fe should see it. My friend in Denver should see it. At the same time, we are all on the phone. Hey guys, you see that light? Yeah, that's the space station. Wave to Chris Hadfield. I see him up there on the solar panel playing his guitar. I think he's playing Bowie. Like, people claim they've seen these astronauts on the thing from their backyards. So you and three friends in three cities should see the same light at the same time. Anytime. Any time of night. But yet, no one yet has been able to have concurrent observations. And the thing is, let's say it's an airplane and not 300 miles up. Then you wouldn't see it from those three locations. Plain Dakota says, I would dedicate my time to this, but I have two toddlers. Well, how long did it take you to see it the first time? Did it take months of planning? I'm going to see the ISS sometime in June. Let me set aside some time. Like, all you got to do, to quote McToon, is just get the app, go outside and look up. And I'm like, well, McToon, have you gone outside and looked up and seen the ISS? And he's like, no. But what I've done here is, as I have put the burden of proof, it's no longer mine. I don't have to accept claims of UFOs, of Bigfoot, or of space stations that aren't attended by evidence. And if you take all the time to go see it, like, yeah, I planned to go see it, I saw the I went there and it was there, and you didn't record it, then what's the problem? And I'm not even like a photographer, but if I'm out on a walk and I see a roadrunner carrying a toad or something, because they smash those things on the sidewalks, I take out my phone and I record it. If I saw a weird bug, it was like a leaf bug with 3 legs clinging to my door, I record it. I take pictures of spiders, like anomalous looking spiders. And I saw this thing, it's like a wasp, but it looks like a big ant. A velvet ant is what they call them. So I'm just saying, if I saw a space station or 50 Starlink satellites, I would be photographing the hell out of it. I think we should put a bounty on it. $1,000 for a valid video of the ISS, an ISS selfie shot. Like, go outside with your app and say, hey, it's going to be here in 5 minutes. Get your phone and take a selfie and have it flying over your head. Plain Dakota says, I actually saw it at a flat earth gathering in Alberta. They planned around it, and once in my balcony. So how many people at the flat earth gathering that planned the gathering around the spaceship recorded it? If nobody recorded it, then that falls into the category of, well, a lot of people saw something, so there must be something, so we can't rule it out. And what hasn't been supplied is a valid replacement. You have to replace a feat that's only possible in the hypothetical environment of low Earth orbit. How are these lights matching a model that would require them going around the Earth or around a 25K circuit every 90 minutes? How? And for there are millions of people who say that they've seen UFOs, and I'm comfortable to say every single one of them is mistaken. And when it comes to ISS sightings, I had someone sending me pictures or videos, and like, well, I don't know. But they just kept sending them and sending them and sending them. Turns out that it was right next to this airport in Jersey. And I'm like, okay, so now we've matched it up. You're sending me videos of airplanes coming in for a landing. Like, you don't know this? So I think there are bad faith claims, like people believe, like UFO people. A lot of UFO people and even Bigfoot people are delusional, but not in a pathological way. But, like some people some people are kind of grifters about it. People say, Jesus came and talked to me. Like, when people say that, I just assume they're grifting. When people say they saw a UFO, I think it's just some kind of a colorful story. Yeah, ISS is fake. And there isn't any evidence to support there being something up there. The argument for something up there is the result of a non sequitur. And the reason I say it's maybe Bigfoot is this. I know someone who believes in Bigfoot, and they went to these woods where they say there have been Bigfoot sightings. And they heard some noises at night. And they said, I heard Bigfoot. Her spouse didn't believe in Bigfoot. And he said, I heard a raccoon. So what do you want to believe? And I'm like, no, you don't get to choose, because then you could say it was anything. You included something in the realm of possibility that hasn't been proven to exist. And then you fed a cognitive bias, a desire to believe, and gave somebody some wriggle room to have a little miracle. That's self-deception, and I understand it, religious impulses, but it has no business here in our objective breakdown of reality to admit such shoddy evidence. And what I've been saying for years is that if it's so easy to see it that you can predictably go see it, then go see it. And we've pushed that bar out there. We have had a number of people make observations, but nothing that was conclusive. Nothing someone would sign off on. Certainly no triangulation. I had someone in Denver watching, and I was watching at the same time, and they said they saw a light. I didn't. So I'm like, well, then you probably saw an airplane, because if it was 300 miles up, I would be looking at it right now. Plain Dakota says, you can see general satellites at any time. You've seen those, right? Okay, look, I've seen planes. I've seen tiny lights in the sky. But before the conversation even begins, you have to ask people for details. Because I notice if somebody has an agenda to prove they witnessed something, they will bend what they say to meet your expectations. So I would ask you for details first. When was the last time you saw a satellite? When was the last time you saw a satellite? Can you name a date, or is it just a vague thing? Like, well, in my life. Like when? Tuesday? Where were you? How far did it travel across the sky and how fast? These are all good questions. Because some people say, if I don't tell them, like they'll say, well, I saw the ISS. It took about 15 minutes to go from horizon to horizon. And I saw it in my front window, then I ran to my bedroom window and I watched it go over. I've heard people tell me these stories. And then I say, well, you do know that, and I'd ask them more details, like what time was it? And they'll say, oh, it was 2 in the morning. Okay, so 2 in the morning, you saw it coming over the horizon from one window. You ran across the house, looked out your other window, and then you saw it sail over the horizon. And you're like, I don't believe in the ISS, but I saw something. Okay, well, the whole problem with that is that, and I asked them, well, what about the umbra? And like the what? The Earth's shadow. If you're in low Earth orbit and it's 2 in the morning, you're in the dark part of the Earth's shadow. And the Earth's shadow goes out into space 800,000 miles. So anything in that 800,000 mile column of darkness is not going to reflect the sun. If it's not reflecting the sun, you can't see it. There's no way you could see it go horizon to horizon. So I would shoot that down. And then I would add on to it, how much time did it take to go across your sky? And then ask yourself, well, if it took 15 minutes for you to go, through this whole observation, how the hell did it make it around the rest of the world in the remaining 75 minutes? Kevin Mooring says, how come the ISS photos don't show Starlink? Yeah, ask Fight the Flat Earth. There's lots of pictures of satellites in space. No, it's a bunch of artists' renderings. But one reason why I'm intransigent and I'm not going to take anybody's word for it is that if somebody hears me saying, I don't believe you because your evidence is inadmissible and it shouldn't be a matter of belief, you should know. Given all of this, I think it's fair to say the burden of proof is yours, go take it. And I will publicly say, I was wrong. There's something there. And I don't like that either. Like Jaren's like, oh, I saw something, I recorded it, and I think it's a drone shaped like the ISS. The problem with that is you run into all the same issues here. The ISS is not aerodynamic. It would fall apart if it wasn't in the frictionless environment of outer space. There's so many problems with. Another problem is this. So they fake space, they fake it with rockets, they fake the moon landing badly, but one thing they do really good is they simulate an impossible craft that you can track with your app that confirms their model. Like if I'm presented with that, if I did find that the app tracked the ISS and I could confirm it, I'd be like, hey guys, we're on a ball and that thing's falling at 17K. What's up, Northern Girl? Yeah, I'm going to be live streaming daily because I did the job I applied for. I'm not sure why. I probably look like a mass shooter. I don't know. They didn't hire me, so I'm going to go ahead and, for the time being, sell watercolor private commissions based on AI-generated art. And if I have a quota set of about 10 a week, and I'm selling through eBay as well, I can make this all work and keep the insider going. The whole publication wing of this is going to proceed. Deprogram Truther says, it all works because people are lazy. Hardly anybody attempts to use the app. No, they use the app as an argument. They're like, bro, I got the app. Yeah, I got the Pokemon app. Does that mean there's little Pokemons in the dumpster down there, like raccoons sifting through the trash? No, it's a simulation. The app doesn't serve as evidence that the thing exists, but for some people it does. I saw it on TV, therefore it's real. I saw it on a meme. I saw a video of motorcyclists going towards Colorado, so I believe the Hells Angels are going to save the Crips and the Bloods from Venezuelan gangs who are trying to take their jobs. I believe it because Tim Pool said it, and it only costed Russia $100,000 a week to get him to say that. I believe it because Elon Musk said it. I believe it because it's the opposite of what they say on CNN. Obrecht says phones aren't great for recording small lights miles up too. Are you sure about that? My brother's a pilot, and he's been recording in space, well, at 40,000 feet. I'm sorry, I think that the stratosphere is space. I think that's low Earth orbit. But no, he's been getting some incredible footage. So I don't know if I buy that. I say a flip phone, like the kind they use at mass shooting events to give you blurry images of the crisis actors so it looks realer. Yeah, the flip phones, those are terrible, but we're past that now. And all I want is a light in the sky to correspond to the app in the same video where you're in there as an observer. Like, here's me, that's the sky behind me, and in 3 seconds, there's going to be a light in the sky. That's cool. Think about it. You cannot predict planes with that specificity. To be able to point to your friends and say, there's going to be a light in the sky in 5 seconds. That's proof positive that space is real. Or it's just a really neat trick. Like, why won't somebody do this neat trick and say, hey guys, look up, there's going to be a light. There's going to be a chain of Starlinks. No, these are carefully arranged PR stunts designed to look like authentic eyewitnesses. Can't forget the lessons we learned about 9/11. Fake eyewitnesses form an argument, a seeming sense of consensus. Argument ad populum, but essentially, they build a false consensus. There's a very respected skeptic I know who says, well, I've never seen it, but a lot of people say they've seen a light in the sky, so I think it's up there. Nope, you failed that one. A lot of people believe Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. Why don't you believe that? Since when do you accept the wisdom of the common lemming? Let me appeal to the lemmings. A bunch of lemmings have said this. Kevin says, how come no one has used the awesome P5000 to catch the ISS? No, I'm not creating a false dichotomy. This is where, okay, here you would need to do this then. You're getting into the realm of ufology. You tell me, what kind of craft can meet transit points on a 25,000 mile circuit / orbit? What kind of craft can do that? That's your homework. What kind of craft can meet the transit points? There's only one answer. The space station. Something not in the atmosphere. But to say that there's a third option, it's like, well, what is the third option? Because you're saying it's not the ISS, so you want to admit something else into it, but now you're in the realm of super secret space program technology because it would necessarily be more advanced than anything that we have. And whatever it is, let's say it's real, that, yeah, NASA has a way to simulate the ISS with some kind of craft that does everything the ISS is said to do. Well, you know what? That's more amazing than going to the moon because they managed to, I don't know what you would call that. There's no propulsion. It's not perfectly timing. Its timing is so perfect. Eric says, could be using multiple aircraft in each of the time zones. Someone actually try to map that out. So they'd be launching an airplane and crossing over these points. and then making a scheduled flyover. Yeah, people have posited that, but the problem with that is the aircraft can't go fast enough to possibly go 25,000 miles in 90 minutes. That's the problem you're looking at here. In order to be observed in these points, it has to go that fast. I mean, I guess you could simulate it possibly for a local passover, like if they highly publicize something, but I don't know. I guess you hypothetically, I guess you could. But I've seen some breakdowns on it describing how implausible it would be at a minimum. Because part of it would be, even if you did it with planes, you're still dealing with the weather. You're still dealing with the atmosphere, and moving at these speeds, matching these particular transit points would be just as difficult as arriving on time every time. Airplanes are not consistent enough to simulate what has been 100% consistent for 20 years. When Jaron did his transit, he counted down 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There it is, to the second. You tell me, based on your experience with airline travel, how often airlines are that predictable? How often airplanes are that on time? Like, it's never happened. Plain Dakota says it could be a natural phenomenon. Yeah, I've heard that as well, that maybe it's a natural luminary and NASA created the ISS to go along with it. Well, then take a picture of it. And not only that, but then why does it look like the ISS in all the pictures? Like, in some of these pictures, they literally have astronauts on it. So then are you admitting then that it's fake, but they are recording it, but instead of showing you it, they're inserting in place of it a CGI clip or little clip art of the ISS? Well, I saw Loon X during the day. It was in the middle of the summer, and I don't know if it's because of the heat, but maybe they were landing at Kirtland Air Force Base. But I was on a long walk, and I saw in the clouds, and in fact, I have a video on my channel from a couple weeks ago. They're not uncommon. Well, I saw a weather balloon recently, but when Loon X was going around, I did see it, and I wasn't looking. I was on a walk. I was just taking a long walk, and I saw in the sky, it kind of looked like first like a crescent. So I lay down in the park for a little while, and I just watched it, and eventually it became clear to me that it's clear. The big balloon of it is clear. Plain Dakota says, I've only seen the light, not the H shape. But let me ask you, were you using a tracking app? 3 questions. Tracking app, how long did you see it for? Date and time. And if you had a whole Flat Earth conference organized around it, that information would be very specific. I once had a guy call me up after a live stream, and he said, stop saying 9/11 was a movie because I saw the planes. I'm like, oh, okay. Sorry. And he's like, and I have a friend who has to go see a psychiatrist every single day because of her PTSD from seeing bodies hitting the ground. Whenever she closes her eyes, she sees it. Now she's like having to see psychiatrists. So, I mean, I got all this from someone who later admitted he didn't actually see it. But let's say I listened to him. Let's say I was very empathic. Then this person would have come in and said, hey, you're really hurting people with this. Maybe you should stop. And I'd be like, yeah, this is really messing with my mind. I'm kind of, maybe it's all real. Shout out to the 9/11 victims, IPS. Let's just go ahead and just shut this down. No, I'm like, this guy's a liar. This guy's a troll working for the government. That's why he won't call in live and do it, because he doesn't want to be on record lying about ISS. Lying about the space station. I'm sorry, it's World Trade Center. I want to compare the two, though, because the false ISS witness who says they saw the plane is very similar to somebody who says they saw the ISS through their transits. Not eyewitnesses who've mistaken a plane, but I mean the people who do transits. Because to do transits, like a lunar transit, solar transit, is to be actively taking part in the deception. Obreek says, I wasn't using the app and I saw Starlink just random. Now, you saw it just random. Were you quick on the draw? Did you record it on your phone? Did you take a picture? And why not? My follow-up question to those questions, why not? Because I assume you didn't. It's like, it's amazing to me how people just don't think it's worth taking a picture of. I would take a selfie with a spaceship over my head if I saw one. If I saw a Bigfoot, I'd take a selfie with him. I don't even like selfies. I don't do selfies, but I would do selfies for spaceships and Sasquatches. But people are like, I'm not all that impressed by the spaceship up there. I'm gonna leave my phone in my pocket. Yeah, if you can find the event, by all means. And if you can get any sort of footage or video of this alleged spaceship in space, or a light that imitates a spaceship in a way that's even more amazing than a spaceship. Because an aircraft doing what the ISS purports to do is more amazing than the ISS. Obrique says, I ran inside, told family to come out and enjoyed it. I understand the skepticism, though. Okay, so how many of the people in your family are phoneless? Like, did anybody record it? Every time there's like a big vivid rainbow here, there's like 50 pictures of it on Reddit. We had a big double rainbow, and it was just spanning the entire East Mountains down to like the Four Hills. It's just a huge thing. And so I'm like about to take a picture. I'm like, there's people in town I bet right now on Reddit with better vantage points. Armin Ree says, Tim, one does not need to be actively lying to produce false testimony. A lot of factors can induce perception, expectation. Yeah, well, they don't have to be... Actually, it depends on how you define lying. Like when... there are people who have said to me, like one person said to me, I was in college and Jesus came into my dorm room and he told me to stop drinking, and I started reading. Like, he told me this big story, and I know he was lying. It was a cool story, but I do not believe that this spirit or a ghost, that this figure manifested. I think it was just like, that's lying. I mean, we don't have to call it lying. You want to be polite. Like, let's just treat all beliefs as sacrosanct. I believe in unicorns, so let's be respectful and tiptoe around bad evidence for unicorns. One of the things that I think we have to do from now on is we have to take down the state religion and its God constructs with the approach that an atheist would take when facing a theocratic society given over to superstition and a argument from some sort of authority, divine authority. I think we can use the same kind of approaches here. So we have to demand evidence. And if someone says it's too hard for me to produce evidence, that's not my fault. It's my problem. The Starlinks are way as the ISS. I've never seen, I feel left out. I've never seen Santa either. I feel left out. Now, I will say this. I used to think that these little lights that I would see in the night sky going usually south to north, I'd see these little lights and I'd follow them. They look like little stars. And I'd be like, look, it's a satellite. I thought I was looking at satellites all the time. I just took it for granted. But then I did some research. I learned more about different types of craft and what to expect and how to find them. And then I realized, you know what? I was misled. I was not lying to myself. So it wasn't actively falsifying, but as someone who was gaslit. So this is what Armin Ree references. You don't have to be willfully falsifying, but if you've been gaslit, then you've given over some aspect of perception to a third party. To some external influence. So I just took their word for it. I didn't question the ISS, and I used to watch the video on this roommate's big screen TV. They'd be watching, and I remember at the time thinking it looks like computer animation, but I didn't think it might be computer animation. weirdly, I overlooked it. I was like, I guess it's just so high tech and it's science-y and they've enhanced it. It just didn't strike me that it could have been fake. Inkstreet just watched Megaopolis, disjointed, tons of subliminals, predictive concurrent programming, has a weird Elvis scene. Yeah, okay, I saw a clip where this guy gets shot, like an assassination attempt, and then after that they show him and he has his right eye having some kind of wound. And then you have the Elvis thing as well, and the satellite that falls. But look, the thing is, yeah, of course, it's not all voluntarily false, because a lot of people are wrong. A lot of people misspell words. But we shouldn't say, well, they learned it wrong, so it's valid. No, if you misspell a word, you're misspelling it. We're not doing anybody a service by saying, well, you have these precious little beliefs that are totally false, but your heart's in it, so you can keep it. I'm like, no, facts don't care about feelings. And feelings and caring about fake feelings is what has really hampered the truth movement for the longest time, because they don't want to insult the so-called victims. They don't want to rock the boat and call fake fake until the dust is settled, until the theatrical blood is dried. I'm going to go watch the movie for sure. I might even have, yes, you know what? I'm going to go catch like the 7 o'clock. But what's great now is we've established a culture of disbelief here. We've fomented this culture of disbelief where the consensus is no longer saying, a lot of people saw the light, so you can go ahead and shut up with your skepticism. Or a lot of us here know somebody who has a buddy somewhere who was affected by that event, so you auto-hoaxers, you can go ahead and shut up. No, that's not the case here. Here it's like, well, you don't have the evidence, so we can poke fun at NASA. We don't have to give them the benefit of the doubt and presume that their app matches any real-life object. And I'm just saying that if that is your claim, it's on you to back it up. And McToon couldn't do it. And he's like married to the globe. He's like a big-time Gloober. And he can't be bothered to go record the ISS. I mean, to me, that was embarrassing. I'm like, he's like, you've never seen the ISS, you dumb flurf. I'm like, well, have you seen it? No. What's your excuse? And he is, okay, so you know what you call that? Low information believer. I believe it because a lot of people said. I believe it because some people that I trust believe it. Outsourcing your perception, that's low info belief. Informed disbelief weighs a lot more than that. Informed disbelief on a scale far outweighs low info beliefs. And low info beliefs should be mocked. Well, they should be challenged anyway. No, it wasn't Fight the Flat Earth. It was McToon. Fight the Flat Earth sounds like a great guy. He told this story today. He said he was at the gym, and the guy in front of him wouldn't wipe off the machine. Probably the hamstring press or something. I don't know. Some of these machines, and the guy sweated all over it. And he said that the guy wouldn't clean it up and was rude to him. So then he went to the manager. He totally Karened out. He went to the manager and said, well, I'm going to have the manager make you clean it. So he went to the manager, and the manager was rude to him. And then someone else came along and said, why are you bullying the attendant? So Fight the Flat Earth got called a bully at the gym because he was bitching about somebody else. I've been consistently going to gyms really since I was in the military, and I've never talked to anybody. I've never ran into anybody. I've never had any issues with anybody. I think some people are just looking for trouble. They're looking for something to be outraged about. And what he said was, I'm not a bully, I confront bullies. And his argument against the flat earth is mostly just vitriol leveled at people who don't believe in the globe. But what's really problematic with him and McToon, the reason I don't deal with these individuals, because they slip into my DMs, they want to talk to me. I'm like, you believe all the fake news. And if you believe all the fake news, then what do I care about your assessment of one of the fakest aspects of fake news? And then act like you have the intellectual high ground and you can browbeat me for it. They're so nasty. And I think they're hired for that reason. These Earth-shaped field agents. I think they're hired to intimidate people into speaking out against the fakery. They're mad all the time. And they look mad. They look unhappy. I think it's because they're on the losing team. The Earth could turn out to be a spinning ball, 25K circumference, and we're still right. The evidence doesn't support it. The evidence from NASA is some kind of model that most likely obscures more than it reveals. Maybe they're covering up land. But even if the Earth is a ball, NASA's footage is still fake. The ISS is still fake. There's still a massive conspiracy and cover-up, and it ultimately stems from total media monopoly. It's not about the shape of the world. It's about the world view and who gave it to you. So I don't envy them. They're not closer to truth. They're ideologues. They're closed-minded, and they're pretty mean, to be honest. McToon is a bad person. And I don't say that about very many people, but he did try to get Quincy's pilot license taken. Like going after somebody's job, that's MG level. That's out of bounds. But I wonder, why are they so mad? Like, really? They're not all mad. There's one guy, I don't know his name, but he's a huge Elon Musk fan, and he collects replicas of all the rockets. So he's got like 50 obelisks behind him on the shelf, and he looks very happy. He's a big rocket worshiper. And some of these people are, honestly, I think that they are blissfully unaware of how it is. They're true believers. Like, think about the priesthood in these churches who know it's all BS. And they have these idealistic, younger, new people who believe it literally. Dupes. They're useful. But Fight the Fly is reality impaired. He doesn't know anything about the real world because he's subsumed, he's submerged, he's part of the simulation. And simulation theory is another one of these guardrails you got to watch out for. Simulation theory is just as bad as the Mandela effect. And here's how it works, because this is all a trap. Because none of us, I mean, maybe someone can correct me here, but when you're going through your life, at no point is the real unreal, unless you're having some kind of a drug-induced psychosis. But real is pretty much real. To say it's a simulation without evidence or a tangible way to prove it is just a claim. There's no evidence that this is a simulation in that sense. It's a interesting conversation, but it's not really a valid observation. There are things you could bring up that might suggest that the model we've been given is false. But as far as simulation theory, it's mostly misinformation and misdirection, because we are living in a simulation in terms of our mental map of the world. So we live in a shared fictional universe, a model. That model is a simulation. And when we talk about fake news, you could just start saying fake history. Yeah, they're faking history day by day with simulated events. And the simulation is what we perceive, see, what everyone's focusing on, the big stories, but also the things that don't exist, that they have inserted into our worldview, the fake things, the things they put into the realm of possibility. So I mentioned earlier how Bigfoot believers just have that on their list. Well, we have all kinds of constructs that aren't real. But if you notice it's a simulation and you're like, well, this is weird. All the news events seem to be predicted by the mainstream media promoted movies. Like there's all kinds of predictive programming and so you see connections and you're like, well, man couldn't do this. This is not possible. How are these movies connecting to future events? It's like prophetic. So if you don't know, you're living in a simulation when it comes to the news and you assume it to be objectively real, then when you see the manipulation, your logical conclusion is that reality is a simulation. You have evidence of it being a sim, but instead of saying the televised version is a sim, the simulation theorist or the person who's led to it is going to say it's because we're in a simulation. Joe Rogan does this all the time. He's like, there's no way that Donald Trump at the right moment turned his head and dodged that bullet. We're in a simulation. I'm like, no, that was a simulation. That was a magic trick. It was a simulated event. It doesn't mean that we're in a simulation physically. It means mentally we are. So if you separate the simulation as just a mental construct and we are in it, it all makes sense. But the simulation theorists, like Joe Rogan, the ones who push it there, they don't want you to make a distinction between the mental sim and the real world. Their power, the power of the media monopolists, is in their ability to get you to think they're one and the same. Because they get you into their model, then they can manipulate the model. Oh, this month, the model's infected with the bat flu, with the kung flu. Or this month, the model's afflicted with fallout. And everybody in the model acts as though it's true. It's just like Westworld. We are synths in Westworld until we figure out that it's only a simulation. But simulation theory is just a major misinformation trap. And so those who push it, and the synchromistic line of thinking, which says these eerie coincidences in the news can only be the result of some kind of higher power, they're doing damage control unwittingly. They're hiding the greatest revelation of all. This is bigger than just a single conspiracy. We have unmasked global mind control. Deeper than any indoctrination, and it's so universal. It's quite an achievement in terms of propaganda, mass influence. And they're not even done yet. But they've created the simulation and they moved us into it. But if you fall down the route of simulation theory, then you're no longer able to uncover the truth of this place because you've been confused. If you think that the simulation and the real world are the same thing, by definition, you're confused. Like when someone says to me, because they think they're being skeptical, you're not being skeptical if you're flippantly questioning the media skeptic and critic. Like, we're the skeptics here. We're the devil's advocates. We're not the ones that need to be questioned. It's them. Hold on, let me catch up on some comments here. Inks G says, I wonder what he does with all those rockets. They may have evolved the tricks a little bit. I mean, they launched something into the air. Doesn't mean it's going into, quote, space. We know part. But these things matter. It matters if your conclusion for media manipulation is a higher power. It matters because you've been tricked into accepting that somehow media is divinely inspired, and it absolves the PSYOP entertainment complex and the people who are part of it, the governments that are involved. It takes them out of area of suspicion as being the ones who are behind the sim. They want to mystify it, make it esoteric, And I think this is all guardrailed because I notice the people who really go into the synchromystic realm see news as not only fake, but as in too fake to be concerned with. And so their focus is more on what is the esoteric meaning of this stuff because there are these layers. But I think that too might be planted. You know, what's with all the Dog Star references and the esoterica and all these Jim Carrey movies? Perhaps the purpose of it is to mystify the synchronization between propaganda and entertainment and future news. Because if anything, it's to prevent the people who would notice from arriving at the right conclusions. Because I was arriving at the wrong conclusions for the longest time. My best guess, my best hypothesis at one time was they're using magical ritual, group magic ritual, with the TV screen as altar to project the futures that they're going to manifest through our collective engagement with the mass media apparatus. And that's not an uncommon take because it seems to make a lot of sense. But I'm now looking at this, I think this is a variant of simulation theory. Get the person who's looking too closely to arrive at a conclusion that nullifies him as an observer, that removes him from being a threat to the dominant paradigm. So I would even argue, too, that mysticism and magic are valid topics and worth consideration, but they're entirely separate from what we're doing here. Same for the religious stuff. You know, I have one take on this, and someone like, we have a regular caller who has a more religious take on it. It's like, I'm more interested in the observations, not conclusions. God was bored says, that is so true. I got amazing footage with an iPhone XR. Rings of Saturn too. Yeah, actually a friend of mine was looking at Saturn through a P900, and they said that the rings have changed their angle, so now it's just like a straight line. I haven't seen it yet. But it's going to be a little while before we're able to see the rings as a swoosh, like the big Nike swoosh that it used to look like. That's gone away for a little while. New Perspective says, wait until they simulate a simulation theory experience where crisis actors claim a shared glitch or interdimensional alien encounter. That's the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect is created through retroactive interference by the interrogator who is literally prompting false memories by the questions. The Mandela effect is 100% a psyop. And I used to, I looked into this and a lot of people are like, it's their belief, leave them alone. I'm like, I don't know. I think it's nefarious. I don't think we should look at a glitch in cognition and treat it as a glitch in reality. Like reality shifted. No, you had a misunderstanding. You misspelled a word. Let's not mystify a misunderstanding of our cognitive processes when it comes to memory and recollection. In Occam's razor, what's more likely, that reality shifted or a well-known tactic for producing false memories was employed on a bunch of conspiracy theorists to get them to fall into the simulation trap? And I can point out one example. There's a very well-known 9/11 critic who broke down the fakery of 9/11 as best as could be done at that time. But then he's like, this doesn't matter because the Mandela effect. And he became a Mandela effect proponent and no longer had any sort of critical opinions on the fake news other than stating the obvious that they're faking the news. But that's where his journey ended. Synchromysticism, Mandela effect, simulation theory are dead ends. God was bored said, if you fly in a plane, bring a small level to notice if it flies level. Yeah, didn't D. Marble do that? It's pretty funny. Like flat or not, ball or not, the scale thing is kind of an issue there. And I think it's funny when people are like, don't you think that if the Earth was flat, no, if the Earth was a ball, pilots would have to tilt the nose of their plane down every mile? Or what? They're going to go into space? You think an airplane's going to go into space? The pilot fell asleep and forgot to dip the nose down, and the curve just got away with him, and now he's in space. Like, no, I mean, I guess on a computer model, perfect simulation, you have a horizontal line. Yeah, it's going to have to conform to the ball. But the scale of it all, the atmosphere, the aerodynamics of it all, really have nothing to do with the curve or lack of curve. But I do love those flat Earth memes that get people thinking. I call those koans, these little like statements, you like kind of things that are to make you think about something in a new way. Like a tree falls, a forest doesn't make any sound, that type of thing. So when you ask somebody about the shape of the world and what do you know, I think it's a valid question. What really makes the Gloobers mad is when you say, I don't know. I'm waiting for better evidence. It's like convert or die. I don't know. I'm going to shop around, check out some other religions. No, ours is the only true religion. You must choose this now or you're an infidel. It's like you don't get to like shop around, wait for more information. No, you must trust the government implicitly when it comes to space, the space program. Yeah, the simulation thing is a psyop. We got to really watch that one. And I get it, though. I get it. You notice these anomalies, and then you have these really attractive explanations. Like, holy crap, I just saw through the Matrix. Everybody's asleep but me now. I have seen the hand of the universe manipulating the news events in ways that normies will just call coincidence, but I know it's more than a coincidence. And they think that's the final stop. And no, the final stop is that no, not only is it not a coincidence, it's an engineered synchronization between entertainment and future news. In a way, you're being shown trailers all the time for future world events. Yeah, it does feed the ego. I have seen some people who go down the synchro-mystic path will say, I've seen this because I'm not a lemming. The lemmings may not even be sentient. I'm more like the controllers of this realm. Maybe it is all a simulation. I don't know. Something higher. God Was Bored says you should be able to see the ISS 5 times every night. Yeah, I used to have people that say, yeah, I just saw it, and I'll call you back in 90 minutes when I've seen it again. And they'd call me back. They'd say, I saw it again. Just went over my house. And that happened all the time. And I tolerated these calls, even though I knew these people weren't telling the truth, because I was trying to figure out how to decode it, like how to stop it in the future. And when I started surprising them with like, oh, the Earth has a shadow, right? And like, oh, when I was lying, I wasn't thinking about the shadow. So I've made a lot of them into better liars. Like the really good ones will say, yeah, I saw the ISS yesterday. Just after the crack of dawn, it went across the sky, just like the app said, and then it disappeared once it passed the Terminator. I'm like, that's because I told you that's what it does. A year ago, you were saying you saw a light slowly traversing the sky, horizon to horizon. So I have to be careful about helping them out. Liars fascinate me, to be honest. I've spent a lot of time with a pathological liar. And I was frustrated. I mean, I've come across multiple. I knew one who was pretty much guilty of stolen valor until I put a stop to it. Just how easily some people can lie. But what disgusted me was how impressed people were by these lies. You know, I watched this individual, this Denny's manager, recount his experience of parachuting in, killing a few people with a knife, shooting a few, kicking down, like just this Rambo story. So I do a little digging because he's impressed a lot of people. He's in a relationship because of it, because he's this war hero. But you don't want to press him for details because he'll act triggered. And you don't want to trigger his PTSD. Turns out he had fallen archers and he had fallen arches in his feet. Couldn't get through basic training, and they shipped him home. But somewhere between that and a few years later, he constructed this entire story, and he would spread these stories to his friends. So before you ever met him, you knew that this was a war hero who did some crazy stuff. New Perspective says, in 2017, they had a Question Everything conference with Flat Earth, Mandela Effect, reptilians, showing that's the goal. Nothing's real, might as well be a simulation. Yeah, okay, you brought up a great point here. Questioning everything. Like, hey guys, do we really know that the sky is blue? Just asking questions. Someone else like, yeah, we're just asking questions. Is the sky blue? Just asking questions. No, you're making an indirect claim. And just asking questions flippantly like that, ignoring existing answers, doesn't get you closer to the truth. Like, I'm just asking questions. Are we controlled by reptilians? Truthers have traditionally used just asking questions as a cover for advancing highly improbable claims without having to bring any evidence because they're hiding behind a big question mark. And I don't care, kind of like QAnoners do it. Like, is Donald Trump really just JFK in a mask and he's still president? Just asking questions. No, you just suggested something ludicrous and stupid and laughable, but you managed to evade accountability by claiming you're just asking questions. So I hear this just asking questions and I'm like, answers. Ask your questions, get your answers, and then bring those over here. I'm all for questions. You tear down a veil, you remove a false explanation, you're left with questions. But you shouldn't be walking around 5 years later asking the same questions. What are they spraying? That's a bad faith question. Like, I can name people who have been saying for 10 years, what are they spraying? What are they spraying? What are they spraying? Just asking questions. No, you're asserting a spray in a loaded question. And a loaded question is a logical fallacy. A loaded question allows a dishonest person to smuggle a premise into a statement and not have to own it. If a chemtrailer was honest, they wouldn't say, what are they spraying? They would say, hey, see that? I don't think that's condensation from hot exhaust and condensate hitting the rarefied air in the stratosphere. No, I think that's cloud seeding geoengineering nanobots, and it's used to control us. They would say that because that's what they're saying without saying it. But they won't say it because they know how it sounds. So what they do instead is they say, I'm just asking questions, but if you want some answers, go to this website. And then they lead you to a website that gives you ready-made answers for what they were indirectly asserting without ever confronting the established status quo understanding of whatever it happens to be. And I understand you challenge the status quo when it's wrong, but you have to challenge it. You can't avoid the challenge by pretending like you're not really challenging. Ted Stryker said, I'd like to know what that damn dot was that I saw in the sky. The news said you had a 10-minute window. Well, this is why we elevated the standard of evidence, because you had a 10-minute window, but you didn't take a picture. So now, knowing that eyewitness testimony, even if I say, hey guys, I saw the ISS last night. I was just out and I looked up, saw the app. I was on a Pokemon run hunting Pokemons. Then I opened the other app and I saw, oh, the ISS is coming. And I looked up and I saw the ISS. and it just whooshed on by, and then it went over, and then I remembered, oh crap, I didn't photograph it. But believe me, I saw it. Would that suffice? Oh, I guess we got to put away our flat Earth maps, because Tim saw the space station. No, you should say, well, where's your evidence? Where's your picture? What was your latitude and longitude? Let me cross-reference it. Let me see what airports were nearby, what flights were happening at that time, what tracking sites show airplanes would comport, and then multiply Occam's razor. And we've kicked a hornet's nest with this issue so many times. We have, I mean, like Mick Toon and Red's rhetoric got them flustered. But if it was as easy as they say, if it was as real and as obvious and as observable, we would see nonstop. There'd be TikTokers with the ISS in the background. I think if I put a bounty on it, we might get somewhere. Like, we're going to put up a GoFundMe, and we're going to give you them enough money to buy a P900. If you and a friend can drive 20 miles apart and make a simultaneous observation of a light in the sky. 50 miles apart would be better, but anyway, we should put a bounty on it, incentivize it. Exactly, Linda Curtis. Buzzing by at 17,500 miles per hour, there should not be a 10-minute window. Not if it's going the same speed and meeting these other transit points. I mean, it kind of depends. There might be some alleged orbits where that might be more likely, but there's just a lot of problems with this whole premise here. But you know, when I'm dismissing it, I'm not doing so out of anything other than being consistent. We have to be intellectually consistent here. And if we're going to say that the UFO believers aren't to be taken seriously because their evidence sucks, we have to have the same standard of evidence for everyone. And at this point, the majority of ISS sightings fall into the category of UFO claims. Now look at needles in the sky. You can find that before Sputnik, the U.S. Air Force was simulating low Earth orbit satellites using flashlights and airplanes. And these would fly over, hitting trajectories at hundreds of miles above the Earth. And astronomers were able to make these observations. But those were obviously airplanes. Like, sure, you saw a light in the sky, and you could work off of it, and by projecting within this model it out there further, you could make these observations and plug it into an internally consistent map of orbit. But if you were there making these observations, you would hear the airplane. And nobody who claims that the light in the sky they've seen might be a plane has heard an airplane. But also, one other point. It's NASA who should have the answers. We shouldn't be trying to supply theories to explain what NASA is doing or alleging to do. Like, if we're constructing, well, maybe they use a plane here, some kind of a hologram here, and they project this here. You know, you're in the realm of creating a conspiracy theory to explain holes in their story. And I think one of the things that so many people who said they've seen something, therefore there must be something. But just keep in mind that for every ISS witness, alleged witness, there's a billion. there's millions more, maybe a billion witnesses to UFOs. And those are easy to explain. Most people who've seen UFOs are reporting Venus. Yep. Venus is often confused with being a craft from another planet. Yeah, Ariana Grande, I have to look at that today. I saw that. She took a lie detector, and apparently she lied when she says she believes the moon landing. And she was in Don't Look Up. So what is with that? She's both flat, moon landing denialist, and then you have all these Green Bay football players who are one after another saying something about the Earth being flat, what's beyond Antarctica. There's no fixing that. Valid skepticism, whatever their conclusions, however selective, their skepticism with regard to the model we've been shown is valid. Even if they believe all the fake news, you can be right about one thing for the wrong answers. Or because it's so poorly performed, you just have to think about it for a few minutes to figure out how they faked it. But it doesn't mean you have the answers. So these are people who are running around with questions that are valid and mostly unanswerable. Okay, I'm trying to decide if I should watch Megaopolis at the theater or here on my computer. It's showing in like half an hour. So I may go check it out. It looks like I shouldn't miss it. I'm gonna let this dry before I put the finishing details. So if you just got here, and someone might have bought it, it's based off of a Dolly image. But I need to let it dry a bit before I do the final shadows and highlights. So thanks for hanging out. We'll be doing these pretty much daily. I'm doing up to 10 private commissions a week. I'll show you a couple of others since I'm here. So this one, I don't even know if I've listed it. It might be listed. You watch half of Babylon with Margot Robbie. Awesome. I'll have to check it out. Very deep meaning behind that one. It's a little bit larger. It's the penguin reaching singularity. Rubik's Cube. I don't know what I plugged into this one. And then this is one I did yesterday, and I finished it this morning. All watercolor. Listing them all in the same place. And now open to private commissions since T-Mobile doesn't have room for me at this time. So we'll be live. I'll send out notifications likely before 8 p.m. Mountain Time, so a couple of hours.